Hi, I'm Arulmalar Ramaraj. I'm working at the Department of Architecture, Satyabama Institute of Science and Technology from 2003 onwards. I completed my architecture program, or I got my UG degree from School of Architecture and Planning in 2001, and immediately I also got my MTP degree in 2003. So from since 2003 onwards, I am associated with Satyabama. It's a long run, and what happens is like அப்போதான் நமக்கு வந்து அந்த எக்ஸ்பெரிமெண்டேஷன்ங்கிறது நமக்கு திடீர்னு வந்து பார்த்தீங்கன்னா ஒரு கார்பெண்டர் கிட்ட கொடுத்துட்டு ஒரு ஸ்டூடெண்ட் கிட்ட நெயில் அடி சொன்னால் கால் இந்த பக்கம் அடிப்பான் நெயில் வளைஞ்சு தான் போகும் இல்லைங்களா. அதே வந்து நமக்கு வந்து ஒவ்வொரு பாயிண்ட் ஆஃப் டைம் வந்து டைம் ஆக எக்ஸ்பீரியன்ஸ் ஆக என்ன நடக்கும்னா we'll be able to hit the nail on its head. அதே தான் டீச்சிங்கும். அந்த ஸ்டூடெண்ட்டுக்கு வந்து நம்ம டிசைன் திங்கிங் சொல்லி தரோம்னா ப்ராப்ளம் brief. I still remember how I used to frame the brief in 2003, 4 and 5 and how matured it has become right now. இப்போ நம்ம இனிஷியலாக வந்து ஒரு சப்ஜெக்ட் நம்ம எடுக்கிறோம்னு வச்சுக்கோங்களேன், அப்போ நம்ம படித்ததை நம்ம போய் சொல்லுவோம். பட் என்னென்னா ஒரு டைமும் நம்ம எடுக்கும்போது what happens is you'll be able to add layers. There is one perspective. நான் சொல்கிற மாதிரி அந்த கீ பாயிண்ட்ஸ் எடுத்துகிட்டு போவோம், டிஸ்கஸ் பண்ணுவோம், வருவோம். பட் over a point of time what happens is you give lots of small tasks within the class itself and we get the points from the student. So அப்போ என்ன நடக்கும்னா, see the way how the teaching has changed, how I have transformed, and everyone will be able to observe this. And whenever இந்த நியூ டாபிக்ஸ் இப்போ வந்து பெயிண்டிங்ஸை நான் சொல்கிறேன் இல்லைங்களா, அப்போ வந்து பார்த்தீங்கன்னா there will be lots of courses which people would really think to take it up. அப்போ அந்த வெயிட் டாபிக்ஸ் கோர்சஸ் எல்லாம் நமக்கு எடுக்கும்போது என்ன நடக்கும்னா இனிஷியலி why we are doing thisங்கிற மாதிரியே இருக்கும். பட் ஒவ்வொரு பாயிண்ட் ஆஃப் டைம் ஒரு 5-8 years மினிமம் 8 years ஆனதுக்கப்புறம் பார்த்தீங்கன்னா you will be able to achieve lots of things. இப்போ என்னோடது பார்த்தீங்கன்னா puzzles or paintings, whatever I'm talking about, just because I handle art and aesthetics, that has really helped me out. ஸோ அப்போ நம்ம நினைப்போம் இது எதுக்கு நம்ம எடுக்கிறோன்னு நம்ம நினைப்போம். ஆனால் வந்து லேட்டர் ஃபேஸில் all the dots, these dots which are all very randomly placed, everything will get coherently connected by a thread. That's what I have observed in my experience within these 2 decades, I should say. So I can vouch that the teachers who are doing design studios, right, if they are able to document the design process properly and if they are also able to frame the design brief really well, they have equal opportunity of publishing these architects, the emergent outcomes and the design process in any journal. To begin with, moving on to how Web of Science will be difficult, but I can say that for conferences it's amazing. You can always write lots of papers and slowly you can move on to that of the higher level journals. So that's how it moves on, and just because and we have to keep evolving ourselves continuously with respect to the framing the task or whether you're trying to experiment it, and especially when it comes to creativity, right, publishing it in journals is very challenging because this itself is really wicked, it is very subjective, and we need to be really strong in mathematics also, like to check out the validity, reliability, and how you go about translating or the information what you have collected, how you try to validate it with numbers. That's the most important thing with journals look for. If you are able to do it, it is amazing. If I feel that the students also have done really well and that experimentation also has given me lots of scope, automatically I take that and I write papers. For journals it has to be different, but for conferences everybody can write, like creativity related journals and conferences and all, each and everyone can actually write it. Papers, that's an amazing line, I should say. I do it with lots of things actually. We were working with Dr. Suresh Kuppaswamy sir. He was our design chair from 2014 onwards, and he really taught us how to go about framing the design briefs and how to kind of phase it out so that the students get an opportunity to interpret it and take it on to that of the next level, and that's how it started. And whatever we have done like experimentation in design studios, I will always give the credit to Dr. Suresh Kuppaswamy. Very simply I will say methodology is the most important thing, okay. Basically architects, right, we always say that maths is not necessary for us, but I will always say maths is very important because numbers are the one which checks the validity as well as the reliability of the observations which we make in our design studios. So maths is very important, at least the basics such as the tools for checking the validity, tools for checking the regression, correlation, the reliability, everything is very important. So I will say that numbers play a significant role, especially in a domain where subjectivity is very high. And if people are able to really interpret that, I am sure we will be able to publish our papers in amazing journals. I have published in journals such as Thinking Skills and Creativity, or I have done it in A to Z ITU JFA Journal of Architecture. So depending upon the content, we really have to identify the journals. That's the first and foremost thing which we have to be very clear about. And because if I'm identifying what is it, thinking skills and creativity, it goes, the papers are reviewed by social scientists in creativity. So their expectations are completely different. Whereas if I'm trying to do it in architectural education, automatically the expectations of the reviewers will be completely different over there. So we really have to understand the aim and scope of any journal, and whether it is kind of indexed in Scopus or whether it is indexed in Web of Science, whether it is paid or unpaid. We really have to be triple careful about what we are doing. Only then we will be able to write. And one thing is like we should never be scared of scientific writing. See, we always write lots of things, frankly speaking, but scientific writing we are actually weak at. We have to really improve that skill. What is scientific writing? It's like theorem. Like when we were in school, I'm sure all of us would have sorted out the theorems in maths, right? Similarly, when we are trying to write these kind of research papers, we have to be clear about the methodology, what we are adopting, whether it is justified, and we adopt that particular methodology to prove our line of thought. That's how it goes about it. So till we kind of justify the reviewers, you get n number of reviews, and if you are able to really convince them, automatically those papers are taken for publication. And once again, I would also like to tell you, they also look for new directions. Whatever we are trying to do, if it is with respect to problem formulation, how well you have, how differently you have formulated it. And right now only I will say in architecture, research and all is going on to that of the next level. So there are lots of opportunities for us to not only explore these things, we can also be kind of looking into diversified fields like material science or climate, or it can even be like pedagogy, heritage. So many lines are there. So automatically what happens is, initially it was only kind of within that of a domain, but now the research and all has become interdisciplinary or multidisciplinary in nature. So those are the lines which we really have to pick up. In architecture, that's what I'm telling you, no, it can be like, it's very diversified in nature, it becomes predominantly interdisciplinary in nature. And I always tell you, in architecture you can, the research strands can either be very subjective or it can even be very objective in nature. When it comes to objective, like climate, take measurements, take readings, and then you try to validate it, that is very simple. But the only thing is, as architects, we need to be fully aware of the instruments, how to use it, how to take the readings and things like that. So that's altogether different. Whereas if it's becoming very subjective in nature, what happens is like it's very difficult for us to convince the reviewers. And it is very important for us to publish more papers in architecture domain, because it's still in the nascent phase. Like whereas other countries, if you take a look at, lots of papers are available, whereas with respect to India, from our country, you can actually, it is very less in number, and people should take it on to that of the next level. I'll tell you, there are lots of funding agencies, government funding agencies. If our proposal is really good, okay, you get funding from those agencies and you can continue your research. And especially what is happening is, of late, products are becoming very important. And if you are able to integrate our research, practice and academics together, we get really benefited in a different level. So there is a huge gap between these three domains, but when there is an amazing need, or I will say it's very important for us to integrate these three things together. So a practicing architect has to also do research, also has to be in academics, and similarly for an academician, research and practice is very important. Only then we will be able to do lots of things.
Okay.
We should also think about patents and all, but it is very less in our country. I am not saying no to it. Even in my research, if you take a look at it, I was thinking about making use of PET in order to create a product. But what happens is, like, I was only able to check only whether is it plausible for me to create a product out of that. So with that it stopped. So if I want to really extend my research to the next level, I should apply for funding, and I have to get funds from the government agencies, and then if we do that, this product becomes, we can make it commercially available. This is what is very challenging in our country, but basically in other countries, if you take a look at, a teacher will also have projects, he also will have funded projects. So what happens is, he constructs knowledge by connecting all these three things together, and that is shared with the young minds. And whereas here, if you take a look at, right, it's like what is the government funding agencies, right, architecture I feel has to become very well known, and getting those kind of funds is also very challenging for us. Whereas the professors at IIT and all, they are able to do it really well with respect to climate or with respect to water resources and things like that. But with respect to architecture, I mean with respect to the build form or with respect to that of the building materials, there is a huge gap. That is very challenging, because you were saying we always do things for economical benefits, that will be a focus, and that is what is challenging in our country. You know, it's very difficult to cross our boundaries, and if it is research, who will fund? It's not possible for me to put the entire money from my pocket to do it, right? So I'm not very sure about that, but funding is one way of continuing our research to the next level. If we're able to do it, that is really amazing. So even as an architect or a practicing architect, if he is interested in experimenting it, he can actually do it in his own project, and that can be documented, okay, and he can prove his thoughts, his ideas objectively. ஆனால் கஷ்டங்க, ஆர்கிடெக்சரில் வந்து ரிசர்ச் வந்து கஷ்டம்னு மட்டும் தெரியும். தெர் ஆர் லாட்ஸ் ஆஃப் ட்ராப் அவுட்ஸ். இப்போது எங்களோட யூனிவர்சிட்டியிலே பார்த்திங்கன்னா நிறைய பேர் என்ன சொல்கிறதுன்னா, அந்த சயின்டிஃபிக், தேர்ஸ் அ ஹியூஜ் கேப் இன் சயின்டிஃபிக் ரைட்டிங், ஹியூஜ் கேப் இன் மேத்தமேட்டிக்ஸ். ஸோ இதை எப்படி ப்ரூவ் பண்ணுறதுங்கிறது வந்து நிறைய கொஸ்டின் மார்க்காக இருக்கும். ஸோ அதனால தான் வந்து ஆர்கிடெக்சரில் பார்த்திங்கன்னா ஆஃப் லேட்டு தான் கொஞ்சம் நம்பர் ஆஃப் டாக்டரேட்ஸ் எல்லாம் வந்து கொஞ்சம் இன்க்ரீஸ் ஆகிட்டு இருக்காங்க. ஒரு ஒன் டேக்கேட் முன்னாடி பார்த்திங்கன்னா ஐ டோன்ட் திங்க் you can easily count the number of doctorates. For instance, very recently, right, last year I will say we had conducted at the Department of Architecture, Satyabama Institute of Science and Technology, we conducted something on architecture plus design thinking plus architecture. The intention was we gave an insight to the teachers to think beyond the domain, in the sense like we were able to identify lots of experts who studied architecture, who have crossed their domains. They were able to go into like graphic design, or whether it is product design, visual communication, and pedagogy also matters a lot. But we identified, I mean, photography, movies, where architects are really shining in those domains, and this education, I will say architecture on the whole, gives us the confidence to cross the boundaries of our domain. That is another way. So that is with respect to architecture and design thinking. Whereas second one is like with respect to research, right? I will say that even though we conduct n number of faculty development programs and other things, unless we take a pen and write, it's very challenging. You know, you have to be really clear about what is methodology, how we are going to go about, how we are going to adopt that particular methodology in conducting our study. We have to be very critical about what are the steps we are following, how we are going to document it. It's a very systematic process. When once you get a hold of that, it will be easy for you to write more papers. Yeah, I'm open. Actually collaboration is, I mean, it is really interesting. We are looking for lots of collaboration. என்னன்னா இப்போ என்ன வந்து பார்த்தீங்கன்னா சப்ஜெக்டிவ், ஆனால் எனக்கு க்ரியேட்டிவிட்டி எனக்கு புரியும். ஏன்னா நீங்கள் அப்ஜெக்டிவாக பண்ண சொன்னீங்க, ஐ வில் பி லாஸ்ட். யூ கெட்டிங் இட்? அந்த மாதிரி நமக்கு வந்து என்ன சொல்கிறது, அந்த திங்கிங் வந்து ரொம்ப டிஃபிகல்ட்டாக இருக்கும். இதே வந்து அப்ஜெக்டிவாக பண்ணுறாங்க இல்லைங்களா ரிசர்ச், அவங்க க்ரியேட்டிவிட்டியை பண்ண சொன்னால் பண்ண முடியாது. அந்த கேப் வந்து பயங்கரமாக இருக்கும். ஆக்சுவலாக வந்து பார்த்திங்கன்னா ஐ ஹவ் டன் லாட்ஸ் ஆஃப் மெகா டாஸ்க்ஸ் இன் த சென்ஸ் லைக் 2015, if I'm not wrong, no, 2013 we had conducted zonal NASA there at our department. I think it was apologue. So on the time we had tried to work out a workshop with just waste materials, in the sense like which we had tried to collect it from our own campus, such as carton boxes, such as PET bottles. And the mari vechittu we created. If I was talking about tangram illingla, you remember the Tetris we all used to play when we were very young. We used to have that video game illingla. Appo 4 parts la irukum, quadripartite system. So I had taken the inspiration from that. Appo I created a 6-partite modules, like 6 either, and the area was around like 7.2 square meters, and they were supposed to create a model. So it was about recontextualization of the waste materials in order to create ephemeral structures. It was hosted as a workshop, and it was also a competition, and for which we had collected around 3 tons of materials. This we went about analyzing how students had used each of the materials, and from that the idea was taken, and that became the starting point for my research in Vichkongalam. So, with respect to different materials, the students they look into it in a different perspective. Oh, there is a possibility that these kind of waste materials can also be used in architecture. அந்த மாதிரி கூட அவங்க யூஸ் பண்ணிக்கலாம். That is one. And when it comes to open-ended tasks, okay, these kind of mega tasks, the challenges are very different. Whereas the second time when we had done it, it was like our president, like Abdul Kalam. So he came and delivered a speech in our university, and there what we had done was, in order to commemorate that, we created a huge backdrop which measured around like 18 feet by 30 feet wide, okay, with the PET bottle caps of around 70 to 1 lakh PET bottle caps. We created a theme for that, and we worked it out. It was a closed-ended workshop, and where everything was planned, and we had worked it out. Within 2 days we were able to complete it. So that also is like hands-on experience for the students in order to explore these recontextualization of these waste materials. So how it can be used in different ways, and that also we have tried to work out. அதனால we cannot say இப்படி தான் பண்ணுங்கிறதுல. See, என்னோட அந்த பிசார்க் it entered into the Limca Book of Records, whereas this one is completely different. ஸோ அப்படியும் கூட நம்ம பண்ணிக்கலாம். ஸோ அப்போ ஸ்டூடெண்ட்ஸ்க்கு என்னென்னா ஹேண்ட்ஸ் ஆன் எக்ஸசைஸ் ஆகும், எக்ஸ்பீரியன்ஷியல் லேர்னிங், அண்ட் ஹவு டு கோஆர்டினேட் அண்ட் கோஆப்ரேட்டட் வென் தேர் ஒர்க்கிங் இன் மெகா டாஸ்க் லைக் தட். லாட்ஸ் ஆஃப் இன்டான்ஜிபிள், ஐ மீன் சாஃப்ட் ஸ்கில்ஸ் தே லேர்ன். ஸோ அந்த மாதிரியும் எடுத்துகிட்டு போகலாம் நம்ம. Like even in FDPs we do like kind of workshops, like whatever I have showed you right in my presentation, everything was done as part of a faculty development program. It was like 1 day workshop, or it will be predominantly minimum 4 hours, 6 hours or 12 hours workshop we have tried to do it. So that it's like what to say, teach me you know that phrase, right? And hands-on exercise is the one which really goes on into our mind, and we try to explore the same. We remember them forever, illingla. Even for faculty members we have organized lots of workshops like this, but the thing is we should really understand what is our objective and aim, and accordingly we have to work it out. All these things. Architecture la I mean, first thing is you should be very passionate about it, but as soon as we complete the architectural program, we should be in a position to work really hard. I should say it's just not aptitude, you should also have aptitude. Okay, firstly if I say aptitude, we should have good attitude, plus we should always be in a position to develop our abilities continuously. Idu moonu namakku irundaduna we'll be able to achieve great heights. It's a very slow process, I would say, but after some 10 or 15 years, right, after you get your degree and you work in a firm and you get lots of experiences, and if you turn back and take a look at it, the journey would have been amazing. And there are lots of people who think that why am I doing this, why am I doing that, what is happening here, and things like that. I will always quote this. Initially it will look like random dots which are placed here and there. You will be really confused about what is going on. But as years roll on, right, all the dots will surely get connected by a common thread, and that is the one will tell you the kind of path you have traveled over the past so many years. So, attitude. Of course, aptitude, that's the most important thing to get into architecture. Aptitude to work very hard, and abilities. These 3 things play an important role.